Welcome back to Thimbleberry U. I am John Jaggay, joined again by Amy Wallace from Thimbleberry Financial. Great to be back with you, Amy.
Jag, it's always fun to be talking to you.
And I really love today's topic. I know you specialize in tech and healthcare. That's one of your niches. And if 2020 has reinforced anything, it is that nurses are absolutely wonderful, amazing. You can't say enough good things about them. So today we're talking nurses. Why?
Well, first of all, I absolutely agree with you that they are amazing. And that's really the reason I wanted to talk about that. We love the nurses that we work with. They're fun and generally quite motivated. They also tend to be pretty disciplined, which just makes them really enjoyable clients. But there's some other reasons too. The last census, and I know we're up for a new one, showed that 91% of nurses are female. I'd expect that that's shifted a little bit, gone down. But my point is that nurses are predominantly women.
Yeah.
Women generally received less financial education, and at least for our more mature nurses, their husbands may have controlled many of the financial decisions, whether that's spending decisions or investing decisions.
That's something we've talked about in previous episodes too, Amy, is the unevenness between men and women historically. And we're seeing women catching up and things getting a little bit more equal now. But you're right. If somebody had got married, say, 30, 40 years ago, things weren't necessarily the same then as they are now.
Absolutely. And with that, if they haven't been making those decisions, well, women are expected to live longer. And so as a result, their planning needs are different. And they're going to have to be a little bit more diligent to allow those assets to last longer. And then the shocker, right, is that at some point they're going to be in control of making financial decisions on their own.
Statistically, yeah.
So the other issue and reason I want to talk about this is women are more natural caregivers. And I think we've talked about that on previous episodes too. They risk giving too much of themselves, both emotionally and financially, to the point that they might hurt themselves. So ultimately, what I'd say is that nurses are a group within our practice that stands out as having their own unique set of concerns. And there's a pattern to the kinds of questions and things that they talk to us about. So when I see patterns like that, I know that that means other people have those same thoughts or questions. And so I figured this would be a great time to talk about it and see if we can get information out there for folks.
Great. So let's zoom out here for a second. You say that you get a lot of the same questions typically from nurses. If we could start right at the beginning, if you could tell these nurses one thing, Amy, what would it be?
Oh gosh, there's so much to unpack in that. But one thing does come quickly to mind, and that is that retirement and the transition to retirement is not like flipping a light switch, nor should it be treated like an Instapot. What I really mean there is that, and I guess to address this, what you have to know is how we approach money at Thimbleberry Financial. Money is a tool that lets you get out of life what you want to get out of life. We are not the firm for people that wants to grow money to grow money. We treat money as a tool.
Okay.
A great example, I think, here is if I decide I have a picture that I want to go hang, right? And I can choose my 4-year-old's little tiny hammer that he can still do damage with. He finds a way. Or I can choose the regular hammer, or because we also are doing construction in our house and we like to do it ourselves, we've got some sledgehammers around.
Oh, boy.
I could grab the sledgehammer if it's handy. Plus, we don't always put stuff away. So depending on which tool I grab, like if I grab that sledgehammer to put the nail in the wall, I might do some extra damage there.
I know I would. I know my wife would not let me hold a sledgehammer, never mind swing it.
Yep. So that picture that was supposed to be driving this whole project of getting a nail in the wall and needing a hammer to put the nail in the wall might mean that I'm not hanging that picture, but I'm going to hang something else over that hole that I've just created. So the tool can't dictate the outcome, right? We want the goal, which was to hang a specific picture, to drive which nail and which hammer we're going to use for that work.
Makes sense. Okay.
So my point here, when I say that it's not a light switch, is that planning for a smooth transition to retirement takes some time. I think it's really important that if you're somebody who wants to work with an advisor, and I totally get that there's lots of people who just want to do it themselves, you need to work with an advisor early to understand the various components of a smooth transition to retirement. Those might include your understanding your pension options and being able to choose one. That could be a whole podcast on its own, in fact, and we might do that here soon. Your healthcare choices, understanding how to recreate a paycheck in retirement. And I would say that recreation of a paycheck in retirement isn't just the mechanics of how to recreate a paycheck.
Yeah.
But there's a whole emotional piece that goes with that, right? If you've spent all of these years saving and now all of a sudden you need to draw out of your accounts, there's an emotional change that has to happen.
It's almost like a hill you've got to climb. You've got to kind of get over that emotional.
It's almost like you're going to have FOMO, fear of missing out, right? That all of a sudden now you're spending your money when you've spent all these years saving it. What is it not going to be there for?
And you look at anybody who's done anything for a number of years or a long period of time, and when you have to pivot and change and do something else, that is a really difficult thing to think about and a hump to get over mentally.
Absolutely. And, I bring this up because over the last little while, we've had a few nurses come to us that have decided they want to retire, and they've actually turned in their paperwork at work to say, I'm retiring, and they come to us a month before. And they've never talked to anybody.
This goes back to a little bit of your Instapot analogy. I love this analogy because I'm guilty of this. There have been times where, my wife and I will both be, even though we're working from home, we both have a long day at work. And, what are we going to do for dinner? Oh, shoot, we didn't take anything out of the freezer. You know what? Let's just throw some frozen chicken in the Instapot and some sauce and we've got dinner. Okay, done. And that's exactly what you're talking about here, Amy. It's the same analogy. It's like, okay, well, I've made the decision to do this and you're figuring out the how after the fact.
Absolutely. Yes. There's so much that gets crammed into that short period of time, and it's really hard not to have to make some immediate decisions without being able to evaluate. I think the other thing we have to talk about with this is that, like you brought up with COVID, healthcare is really hard right now. It's harder than it normally is, and that's not saying it's easy in a normal time. So nurses are working long hours. Vacation time has been canceled. And sometimes I find that people who are close to retirement might just really want to be done. And I think if someone is in that boat, they should get a professional opinion, because what part of the issue might just be the stress of everything and stress of not knowing where you are in terms of retirement. And if you can just find out, hey, this is what you have to do, you're actually empowered and some of that stress goes away. So one of the patterns that we have seen with many of the nurses that don't know is that they're actually better off than they thought they are. Now, that might just be because people who are better prepared might be seeking professional help. So don't take that as I'm said that, if you're a nurse, that you're better off than you think you are. That's not. But
I think really here, Amy, it goes both ways, because you're going to have nurses or anybody really who says, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to retire without thinking about the consequences. And then on the flip side, you probably have people that think about, oh my gosh, I think I want to retire, but I'm not really sure. Can I do this? And really, whether it's you're in better shape than you thought, or you're in worse shape than you thought, or you haven't thought about what shape you are at all. It really does come down to getting a professional opinion, talking to somebody like you, Amy, that can break the numbers down and say, okay, this is what we can do. Maybe you've got to work another certain period of time to better yourself for your financial future. Or maybe you can retire earlier than you thought, but you really need somebody that can run the numbers. And I'll use the nurse analogy. People will come to a nurse because they need medical help. Mm-hmm. The same kind of goes for you, where people are coming to you because you have a specialty and a field of knowledge about a particular topic that most people don't.
Yes. Yeah, the medical and financial analogies fit together very, very well. So, very good point.
Another thing that you mentioned earlier, Amy, that I'd like to come back to is the caregiving piece. And I don't know if this come off wrong, but yeah, sometimes women do tend to be more nurturing and put themselves last. I think of my mom. I think of my wife. I think of so many of the women in my life. And this can be really an important issue when it comes to nurses in particular.
Yeah, women take time off of work, to have babies, to raise children, and they're more likely to take a break or reduce their hours to care for a family member, such as an aging parent or a spouse. So when we look at that time away, what that really equates to is lost earnings, less cash reserves, less retirement savings, both in terms of the money the employee would have actually saved, but also contributions from employers, increased healthcare costs.
Yeah.
And especially when you leave to take care of someone near the end of your career, that can get pretty ugly. And then smaller Social Security income can also be the result.
Yeah.
So Unfortunately, though, while those are a big deal, they're not the only places I see nurses being hurt or really women or people who take on this caregiving role being hurt. It's with adult kids and a failure to launch. Either the kid's moving back in and the parent covers their costs, or the parent foots the bill for the kids to have their own apartment because they don't really want them at home. And they're all choices, and there's values in those choices. And so we can't argue about values or judge values. You have to make your own choices. But what I've also found is when someone doesn't know the cost of those choices,
yes,
especially women, they don't feel like they have permission to say no. And they don't know what's happening. So getting some concrete information around, hey, if you continue to pay this $2,000 a month for, Jimmy's apartment, this is what that does to your retirement.
Yeah, people don't realize what those costs are. And sometimes as nurses get a little bit closer to retirement, sometimes they cut back on hours as they get a little bit older. They sometimes have that flexibility, right?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought this up because that phasing into retirement, that's what I'll call that, where maybe you worked 5 days a week or 4 days a week and now you're dropping a day, going down. There's a couple of things that happen. At a certain point, you're going to lose some benefits. So we have to factor that in.
Yeah.
But there have been some interesting studies on phasing into retirement. I'm not going to cite any of the studies. I'm going to speak about them generally. The phasing into retirement can be a double-edged sword. So what can be really good about it is it can really give people a taste of retirement and let people figure out what they want to do in retirement and if they truly are ready for retirement. That's the great side of phasing into retirement. There's one other piece that's good about retirement and phasing in. That is that people actually are happier in the transition to retirement if they phase in.
Okay.
But the gotcha on that is for the rest of retirement, studies seem to be showing that they are less happy.
So they're happier in that phase down period than they are when they're actually done and retired.
Yes.
Huh.
More research needs to be done on this. There's lots of things that might explain that. For example, it might be that the people who phase into retirement aren't as financially prepared for retirement. And so now all of a sudden they're not working. They don't feel they have the money to do the things they want to do. So that could be playing a role, and we need more research. But as I look at that, I'd caution someone about saying, hey, I'm going to really phase into this because if your retirement is going to last 30 years and your phase-in period is going to last 2 years, where do you want the happiness?
Yeah, fair point. As we wrap up here, Amy, I know we both have just a real affinity for nurses and the work they do. Anything you'd like to just share for tips with nurses listening as we wrap up?
I think the main things are save early. Use your employer's benefits. They're there as a great resource. And seek out financial advice and seek it out early. Don't spend a lot of time trying to figure this out on your own. You're probably in really good shape in terms of what you could do. Just get the help to make sure you're optimizing that.
And I'll make the analogy one more time. Nurses are amazing because they can do things that other people can't do because of the knowledge base that they have. And the same goes for financial advisor. Nurses are so amazing and willing to help people. Don't be afraid to ask for that help on the flip side of things. Don't be afraid to go to somebody who has a special knowledge base and can help you the way you've helped so many other people. Amy, if somebody wants to reach you at Thimbleberry Financial, what are the best ways to find you?
Yeah, they can give us a call at 503-610-6510 or reach us through our website at thimbleberryfinancial.com.
Awesome. Great stuff as always, Amy. Take care and we'll talk soon.
Look forward to it.
Registered representative, securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisor representative, Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated.